Hello, and welcome to another installment of Black Girl Reacts. This channel is called Murder, She Told, and my name is Madison, and we are going to be getting into some things a little bit differently today. If you haven't already, if you're returning, thank you for returning. If you are here for the first time, please like, comment, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you get notified anytime I put out a new video. But we are doing another installment of my series of Black Girl Reacts. But like I said, it's going to be a little bit different this time around, just in the sense of the content that we're going to be talking about and how we're going to be talking about it. So normally, if you're new here, my Black Girl React series is primarily me reacting to documentaries about different things. We've done a Jonestown one. We've done one about Freeway Rick Ross, who is a big drug kingpin. That's coming out later this month. We've done... we're doing a bunch of different documentary reactions. We did one for 4 hours at the Capitol, an HBO Max documentary about January 6th, which was really good. But today we are going to be reacting to a show, and it's not just any show. It's one of my favorite fucking shows of all time. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, season 15, episode 2. And you might be wondering why we're doing this. We'll get into that. So anyway, today we're going to be doing a reaction to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, episode 2. You can watch It's Always Sunny on FX or on Hulu. And we're starting and we're talking about this. Also, this is a bonus episode, hopefully, depending on how my 13th reaction video uploads or how I edit out certain parts so it's not a copyright issue. This might replace that, or this might be in addition to that. Either way, you're going to get this video. But this month is Black History Month. And I was watching It's Always Sunny, season 15. If you don't know me, that is like what The Office is to some people. That is my Office. It is my comfort show. I've been watching it since the very beginning. It is so hilarious. It is so funny. It is so meta in some ways that I just am obsessed with it. So I was watching the new season, and I came across episode 2, and I was just so into how they were explaining certain things in that episode about race, about blackface, about cancel culture, about wokeness, that I was like, I kind of have to. I feel obligated to do a video on this, reacting to this, and explaining why I think it's such a good episode and how it's just comedy at its finest. Now, a little context. The episode takes place, it's kind of alluding to the fact that it takes place kind of around that time in 2020, during the summer where there are all the protests happening for Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and all those people. And there was that just great unrest, and there's just like an upset in the culture, and it's kind of alluding to that being the context for which this episode was created and why it was created, because during that time, we all know, okay, companies, entertainment, shows, movies, people were getting drugged. They were getting dragged up and down social media every day. Every day it was a new influencer, it was a new celebrity, it was a new company that was getting completely fucked up in the comment section because of what they were responding to when it came to Black Lives Matter. Y'all remember how Dolls Kill responded, the owner of Dolls Kill? Yeah, I don't know where she is now, child, but she was getting drugged. There's so many companies were getting dragged up and down the comment section in social media because of how they were responding to the protests. And as a Black person, it was entertaining. Obviously, it was short-lived, but it was an interesting time because a lot of companies were coming out of their neck to say, you know, we stand with Black lives, da 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 da, or putting up the black square. Remember how that dumb shit? Remember that dumb shit? You know, they were just doing a bunch of things that were like, you matter. I remember like Nikita Dragon did this post and everyone found out it was copy and pasted, and it was like, you know, you matter, da 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 da. I'm not you, but I see you. It was like a bunch of posts like that, and everyone's like, we just want legislation to pass and support for legislation to pass to stop freaking killing us, to stop the cops from killing us, and to reduce greatly the budget of the cops, because it's not helping anything. The war on drugs, the drugs won that war. So let's move on and let's reallocate that money into community in reinforcement to help there be less criminality in certain communities because they have other options. That's what we were fighting for. We were fighting for reducing the police budget. I was fighting for completely defunding the police. But all these people on social media, all these companies were like, Black Lives Matter. And it was just like, we need more. It's not giving what it was. It's not giving. It's not giving. And I don't feel your support. And what would clock them would be when Black former employees, Black influencers, or other people would come out and be like, it's really funny that you're saying you care about Black lives when you called me the N-word, when you said you treated me like a slave, you paid me a lot less than my white counterparts, you did this, you did this, you did this. And we were all like watching companies go down, influencers go down like every single day because of the heightened energy of the time. And this episode, I think, is kind of a response to that, because during that time, companies were freaking the F out. They were freaked out because it was, you know, who's next? Who's next? Hip Hop Harry. Go, 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 go. Literally, it was like you open up your phone. Oh, another one. So this episode is a response to the fear of that time period that the corporations, the entertainment industry, influencers, and celebrities were feeling during that time for fear of being called out. It was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of vibe, where it's like, if you got called out for being racist in the past and you said something basic, then people are going to call you out for your racist deeds in the past. If you didn't say anything, people are going to clock you for that. And there's so many influencers and celebrities and people and companies who have such a racist past when it comes to dealing with people of color, Black people particularly, that people were just, you know, trying their best to fight their way through that time period. And there was a lot of casualties along the way. What else do I want to say? When it came to shows in the entertainment industry, and I had been feeling this for a really long time about cancel culture and what they call woke culture now. Here's my opinions on that just real quick. Cancel culture started out from call-out culture, and call-out culture was primarily started by people of color and Black people and marginalized people who had the space, who had the knowledge and the nuance to be able to point out how people would be microaggressed, different ways that they were, you know, representing Black people on TV, the lack of representation of Black people on TV. It started kind of with conversations and calling things out. I think one that was notable for me was on social media earlier on in this kind of time frame was when J.K. Rowling, who, you know, is a transphobe and we don't like her now, but at the time said Hermione can be Black. I never wrote her to be particularly white. And there was a big outrage from the white community, like, how could you be Black? How could you be Black? And Black people were like, you know, using call out culture to critique the point of view of the white people who were saying Hermione is white, period, because it's a fictional world. Hermione could be blue. Hermione could be a mermaid in Harry Potter land. But you're over here thinking she has to be white, even though she was casted as white. J.K. Rowling is underscoring the fact that she could have been anything. She could have been Black. And in her mind, Hermione is Black. And so That's how I remember call out culture kind of starting, with us starting to critique childhood movies, books, depictions, celebrities, stereotypes, tropes, and shows, and things like that that were kind of rubbed us the wrong way or felt offensive or just tone deaf. And pointing out lack of representation. During that time, there was Oscars so white, and there's that big boycott and all of this kind of thing. So that's how I remember call out culture being, kind of the brewing of conversations around what is represented, why it's represented, who is represented, and how they're represented, and why. And that leads into my whole conversation of my video on white myth making and the way in which history and stories and racial hierarchy play a big role in our history making system in America, and what we like to tell ourselves all the time. But call out culture morphed into something else now, and I'm just gonna say it. This is only my opinion. Call it culture morphed into something else when it went from white people standing behind us and supporting us to white people standing in front of us starting to do the calling out. Do you know what I mean? And so the nuanced conversations, like, could Hermione be black, and lack of representation and things like that, where we clearly know what we're saying because we have experience being othered. So we know how to have the tricky gray area nuanced conversation around why this was offensive and why that maybe be less offensive and things like that. White people started being the ones to call things out. In my opinion, this is my opinion. They took it upon themselves to start saying, well, that's racist, and that's da-da-da, and that's da-da-da. And then everything started to fucking change. Call out culture turned out to be cancel culture. There's a lot more anger and vitriol behind the conversations that were trying to be pushed. And I'm not saying only white people did it. Black people, people of color also played along with the changing of the tide and the power that was felt in that space, because for so long, celebrities, the industry, the entertainment industry, rich people could just do what they wanted without impunity. And even if there were rumors about them, it wasn't the same as how it is now, where we have such close access to them and really truly have the ability to point out behaviors and patterns and different things that certain companies do, certain people do, that point to a bigoted kind of approach of life. And we can grow a platform based off of that and have them actually have to speak for and answer for those things. So I think a lot of people got drunk on power, but I really think the shift came when white people were like, I'm going to stop supporting what you guys are saying, and I'm going to start calling my own shit out. And because a lot of these people didn't really have the same experiences of being othered in the same way, in the same degree. I'm not saying they never did, but I'm saying in the same degree as a person like me, or a trans black person, or somebody like that. Because we all know the racial hierarchy and how it goes. They don't have those experiences of walking out of your door and being othered immediately. They don't know what to call out, how to call it out, and why. They just say, oh, you're canceled. You're canceled. They dilute, and that dilutes the power of what call out culture started out to be. And now it's just kind of a mockery of itself, where we're just calling anything out at this point. Anything subjective, anything's, you put your hair, you curl your hair one day and one curls out of a bun, and now you're getting called out. Like, that's how it feels now. It feels kind of witch hunty in a way, and there's really no movement or purpose sometimes behind certain things that get called out. Or people are reading too much into shit. Like, different things I think are corny with call out culture. I think old tweets are one of those things where it's like, sometimes it's relevant to call someone out for old tweets, hence the Kevin Hart situation with the gay stuff and why he couldn't host the Oscars. I think that was important. Other things, when you're just searching stuff from like 50,000 years ago and this person was 12 on the internet and they said one insensitive thing, it's kind of like, that's corny to me. The Kevin Hart thing makes sense to me because he was like 35 when that happened. But if you're trying to find someone, you get what I mean. Like, things shifted and it got diluted, and the power behind it really, really changed. And And so, which brings us to where we are now in this woke culture, PC culture, cancel culture space, where to me, I feel like it's easy to navigate because I'm a Black woman, so I pretty much can understand certain things. I feel like there's certain things I can learn more, how to be more understanding to, and be more with my language more sensitive to. Definitely, I'm not perfect, but I think that being a Black woman automatically helps me be able to navigate this quote unquote new PC world that white people seem to have such an issue with, particularly conservatives. It became a witch hunt. And what ended up happening with the energy of 2020 in regards to entertainment industry, different companies in the entertainment industry, is what you started to see was a lot of episodes perceived to be very offensive, right? Started to kind of disappear from streaming services. Right? Different episodes of Community. I know episodes of It's Always Sunny, and they directly address it in this episode, and I promise we'll get to it soon, where they did Blackface and things like that. Episodes of, just different episodes of shows just started being banned off of streaming services as a response to whatever was happening with the call-out culture and the cancel culture of the 2020 just mass cancellations and stuff like that. And I want to stay there for a second, because what a lot of entertainment companies and shows ended up doing was completely banning or removing from streaming episodes that had blackface in it with impunity, right? And I'm going back to that nuance thing. Give me a second. They just took off episodes without understanding the context for which the blackface was being done. Now, that sounds crazy coming from a Black person. I'm sure like I said, Black people are not a monolith. You guys can have your own opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. This is me. I think there's a difference between a minstrel show from the 1930s and Robert Downey Jr. doing blackface in Tropic Thunder. I believe there's a difference. And I will explain said difference. And I think nuance is important, because not all of these situations are cut and dry. And when these episodes were being taken off of streaming, it was just like, oh, blackface, we're done. Like, there's this episode in Community where I think it's Dungeons and Dragons. They're playing a Dungeons and Dragons game, and they were dressing up as the characters. And Chang, the Asian Spanish teacher who's like the crazy one in the show, he came as one of like those really dark skinned elves. I don't know what they're called. You tell me in the comments below. I don't play it. Maybe my boyfriend can enlighten me, because I don't know. But just really dark skinned elf. He came dressed as a dark skinned elf, and that episode got taken down from streaming. And I was listening to a podcast, one of my favorites, called The Read, and Kid Fury was addressing this, because he was saying, I love Community, and let me just say this, like, there is nuance in these things. They just snatched down that episode, but the whole point of Chang coming dressed in as that was to add context to his character of being a crazy fucking idiot, and it was immediately addressed. The blackface was immediately addressed by Shirley, the black lady. So it's like, he was like, I don't understand why it was taken down due to the context for which the blackface was done. And also he was actually, the joke was he actually did follow through with playing and dressing up as a Dungeons and Dragons character, but he picked the wrong one. It was insensitive, and he's dumb for that. And that was a context for the joke. It was immediately addressed. It wasn't ignored. It wasn't normalized. It was like, dude, what the fuck? And Kid Fury kind of put words to my feelings about what was going on at the time, because it's like, I know there's a difference. Like, personally, in my heart, I feel there's a difference between a minstrel show and Tropic Thunder, or a minstrel show and the few episodes of It's Always Sunny where they did blackface. Like I know there's a difference between the two of those things, and he put the words to it. It's a context for which the blackface, what is a blackface achieving within the show, within the context of the show, within the character at the moment. What's the joke about it? And to me, with minstrel shows, and we're going to kind of go back into a little bit of history here because I'm going to add in some clips of what a minstrel show looks like and what they would do. But minstreling was a genre of media that white people like to consume in the late 1800s or early 1900s, where it was typically a white person, and the whole point and the whole joke was black people. That was a joke. The joke was black people are savage, black people are dirty, black people are lazy, black people are stupid, black people are gross, black people are dumb, they're subhuman. It doesn't even make sense when they talk. They just are idiots, they're bumbling fools. And that was the point of minstreling, was to depict the racialized stereotypes that were thrust upon black people during that time period, so white people could laugh, but to also continue to reify the racial hierarchy for which we all exist still to this day. The joke was the black person. So they would darken their face with like tar or like shoe polish was really common, to really, really dark and thick makeup. And then they'd leave their eyes here so you could see that it was a white person playing it. So this would be blank. Everything else around it would be a black tar like colored. Then they exaggerated the lips that were big and red, and walked kind of like with a, like, how can I explain it? They talked in jive talk, and they kind of like walked like very loose and animalistic and stuff like that. Like it's noted, and I'm gonna see if I can find a clip about this, but the way that Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and the early animations had them moving, like their bodies were just really loose and just whatever, was because those characters were actually made to be minstrel characters and then changed to be animals. And I think I can find a clip. I'm trying to remember what video that was from, but I'm going to link it down below if I can find it, and I'm going to see if I can clip it in here, because the person, I think it was some sort of person's blackface project, but they did an amazing job discussing the history of blackface in it. So hopefully I can find that video because it explains it there.
Why Jay-Z chose this style, let's look at the context of minstrel animation. Nicholas Salmon, author of A Space Apart, Animation and the Spatial Politics of Conversion, discusses the space minstrel animation played in history. The start of animation was founded as a new technology to replace vaudeville and minstrelsy in the 1920s, as film began to become mainstream. And unlike these shows, which were limited to the human physique, animation was able to exaggerate the black body in ways traditional minstrel shows could not. Salmon states, in grotesque fashion, they depicted black bodies with enormous lips and eyes, mouths big enough to engulf whole watermelons, and bodies jointed so loosely that a single person could express a whole complex of syncopation. In fact, cartoon characters like Mickey Mouse and Felix the Cat were based on blackface. Their white gloves stemmed from that aesthetic. Often many early animations, like 1935's Little Black Sambo, depicted plantations, jungles, and ghettos in order to demonstrate the innate savagery that animators believed black people were born with.
But yeah, that's what minstreling was. The joke was black people are not human, they're monkeys or this, and it was reifying the racial hierarchy for the purpose of white people still being like, those black people, we're so much better than them, we're so much more civilized than them. And that was the point in a more comedy sense. Now I know some people may retort and say there were certain black actors who did minstreling and participated in this, but It's that conversation of survival versus choice, assimilation versus choice, and all of that. And a lot of people, black people, couldn't get jobs in the entertainment industry unless they were minstrelling at a certain point. So that's kind of my retort to that. If you don't understand the difference between survival and choice and assimilation in that conversation, Google it. I don't know what to tell you, but there is a nuance within those two actions. And so that's what minstrelling was intended to be, and that's why that is so offensive, because it's like, okay, black people don't talk like this, black people are smart, black people aren't lazy because we did all your fucking work, black people are, aren't dumb, black people aren't this, black people, may look a certain type of way or act a certain type of way because you never taught us to read. Like, this is all an effect of how you treated us, and it's not natural or innate in just the fact that my skin's dark, that I'm just I'm dumb as hell. That's not the truth. And so that's why, to me, that is offensive. Now, when we get into the Tropic Thunder, the Community episode, the episodes of It's Always Sunny, the comedic space of Blackface now, ciao, I believe it's different. And the difference is, it's no longer black people that's the center of the joke and why people are laughing. It's more so, this character is so fucking dumb and so fucking crazy and ignorant and whatever, they think that this is acceptable, and that's the joke. So Chang, for example, or all of the characters in It's Always Sunny, because they're all terrible people, the joke is, you're in blackface because you think it's acceptable, but the people around you are joking on you because you're in blackface, because it's so unacceptable, and you are the only type of person that would think that's fine. So the context for which the joke was being made using blackface is different to me. I'm not speaking for all black people. So I think that's why I feel like there's a difference. Now, also on top of that, another realm of where I believe blackface should be okay, and people are going to be like, you believe blackface should be okay? Here's what I'm talking about. Time period stuff. I believe it. There's an episode of Mad Men where, the gray-haired guy at the media company or whatever, he does blackface. Time period. I think that's so important for accuracy, for truth. We don't have to shy away from the truth because it's ugly. I think that, why do you think slave movies are made? For example, a really good one, Django, with Jamie Foxx. Django, do you really think, what's his name? What is that actor's name? Titanic? Why can't I can't remember his name. Okay, anyway, do you really think the guy from Titanic, Titanic guy, you really think that he, says the N-word in his real life and like, that's not believable. But he was playing a character of the time. He was playing what's his name, something Candy, Mr. Candy, the owner of the plantation. So of course he owned slaves, so of course he says the N-word, so of course he's racist, and of course he's disgusting. And that's what they're depicting in the movie because of the time period in which the movie is contextualized in. So I think that in cases like that, in cases where It's Always Sunny and that kind of thing, I feel differently about that blackface or that kind of situational comedy or whatever because of what it's depicting about the character, about the setting, about the character development, about their environment, about the people around them, versus the minstrelling thing of black people are just dumb and funny and they're idiots, and that's why we have to subjugate them because they don't know what to do. That's what that was. And I feel like this is something different. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm keeping for blackface in any way. I'm just trying to say there's a nuanced conversation with the blackface thing, and it's not just blackface bad, which is what these companies were doing. I knew I'd get back to it, which is exactly what these companies were doing. And I think it's because they're headed by white people. Blackface bad, so all these episodes need to go down the drain and be banned from streaming, when in reality it's like, okay, maybe in some episodes blackface bad, but in some contexts blackface okay. It sounds crazy for me to say that, but in some contexts blackface not worthy of being completely wiped from existence because of the commentary that it's making. Blackface, whatever. But because white people lack the chip of nuance when it comes to race stuff, because they're so often not othered, they just were like, we're wiping every episode that's ever been offensive to one person, even just one, off the internet. And so this episode of It's Always Sunny, and we're getting to the reaction soon, y'all, don't worry. This episode of It's Always Sunny directly confronts that, because this is them confronting the fact that in the summer of 2020, their episodes of their show were wiped from streaming. Some episodes, I think it was the Lethal Weapon episodes, were wiped from streaming. And so this is them addressing this in the 15th season. It's a very meta episode, and I'm really excited to watch it with you. And I'm going to pause and talk to you about why I think they did such a wonderful job. So anyway, here we go.
Speech, huh? You told me that.
Frank, we're not inside your head, man. We don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Lethal Weapon 5 and 6 are gone. Huh? What do you mean they're gone? They removed them from the library.
They got pulled?
Yeah, the lady said they took them down because of insensitivity.
Huh. Well, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not sure how we talked the local library into displaying those movies in the first place.
Okay. So just pause, because this is how meta this goes, right? In the universe of the show, right, they had the Lethal Weapon movies that are the offensive episodes in the context of It's Always Sunny, of the It's Always Sunny universe. The Lethal Weapon episodes are the episodes where they do blackface, they do a bunch of offensive stuff, and there's some other episodes where D is pretty offensive to Asian people and Latinx people. In her comedy. But I'm not speaking on that because I'm a black person. So the blackface episodes are the Lethal Weapon episodes. So in the universe in which these people and characters are actually real, they were able to get the local library to put up the Lethal Weapon episodes for people to rent. And what Frank is mad about is the fact that they pulled them. Just like they pulled those actual episodes from the streaming services because of the offensiveness or perceived offensiveness. So we're getting into, and we're starting off in a very meta way. They are basically connecting our universe and what we all went through and saw with, their episodes, their catalog on streaming. And they're using that experience in a real way to talk about what it felt like through the made up universe of these characters. So again, A+.
Yeah, Frank, look, while it is awful that they removed our movies, I think it's probably best in this instance to just let sleeping dogs lie.
Yeah, we'll just put them in the past and we'll move on.
Yeah.
Lethal Weapon 5 and 6 are in the past. Right now, we have the path forward and the knowledge to do the right thing. And I think it's obvious what that right thing is.
Make Lethal Weapon 7.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The show must go on, right?
The reason why I love how they're setting this up is, like, with most shows that had some sort of issue during this time period where some episodes were pulled or whatever, a lot of them took the time to distance themselves from said episode. Oh, that was made 10 years ago. That was made 20 years ago. That was made at this time. We are no longer that way. We are going to, continue to change, whatever. What they're directly calling out and doing is, we're not shying away from the heat. What we're going to do is we're going to make a direct episode about this experience in both the universe for which these characters exist. We're making another movie and we're going to try to make it not offensive. And in this real universe where we all are watching this, where they're basically like, yeah, our shit got taken down for being offensive, but instead of trying to be like, oh, that's not us anymore, we're not even going to touch it, we're not even going to put any press behind it, we are dedicating a whole episode in this new season after all this shit went down to talking about this experience. and making another one and trying to be adding our social commentary to how we felt and all of that. So again, they are gangsters for this. Most companies would not do this. Most shows would not do this and did not do this. They were like, okay, we'll quietly allow you to delete these episodes from the streaming platforms and not really address it. They're like, it has a whole episode, and this whole episode is a meta version of what we're experiencing during the 2020 situation. And I love that about them. They don't shy away from it. They're like, oh yeah, we were offensive, and I apologize for that, but we are going to try to go through it and talk about it and discuss it instead of being like, oh, that never happened. 10 out of 10 already.
Can be seen and enjoyed by audiences of today's moral and ethical standards.
Right, because the first time we made that one mistake, and that was...
Well, actually two, because you did Blackface in the sequel.
Oh.
Right, the two mistakes.
Yeah, well, so did D, actually.
Okay, so three mistakes.
Yeah. But you've also done multiple insensitive characters in the past, on and off screen. I don't know if that's going into the conversation we're having here.
Yeah, well, and Frank did Redface.
Well, that's also...
Okay, you know what, let's not... 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mistakes, guys, let's not get into it, because Hollywood has a very clear moral code on mistakes. Okay, you get one. Right? Like Woody Allen, right? Roman Polanski. One mistake, and that was it.
No, actually, those guys continued to make films for the next 40 years.
Bill Cosby.
Well, he made about 50 mistakes. and I would actually argue that all these things we're talking about, they weren't so much mistakes as they were violent sexual crimes.
Right.
But either way, look, the point is, I think we should make a few adjustments to the script, and to our casting choices to make sure that this film is palatable to a modern audience.
I love what they were doing before with commenting on big explosive cases in the entertainment industry, like Woody Allen, what's his name, Polanski, and Cosby, where it's like, okay, they have a strong moral code in name alone, but when it actually comes to people who have had allegations tied to them for decades, Bill Cosby, people knew behind the scenes Bill Cosby was a mess. People knew behind the scenes Harvey Weinstein was a fucking mess, and he was using his power to get sexual favors from young actresses and putting them in positions of just assaulting them. People knew, and people knew. And now Hollywood is trying to, wipe itself off and be like, well, we have a moral compass now, and if you do stuff, you're out. And it's like, okay, but address the fact that Bill Cosby was able to have a whole fucking career for decades, and everyone knew he was raping women. Explain the fact that everyone knew Harvey Weinstein was telling young actresses and using their careers and dangling their careers in front of them to do sexual favors with him. Everyone knew he was creepy, and y'all didn't really do anything about it until one person was able to be like, you know what, I have to say something because I'm tired of this. Like, that's such a funny commentary to me, because it's like, yeah, now they're getting into some real shit in this episode, where it's like, okay, y'all are pulling our episodes from streaming, y'all are scared to like address that fact, and we are admitting that was offensive, or that was probably insensitive to some people, to a lot of people, to everybody. But you are the ones telling us and ripping our episodes from streaming, when you guys are the ones that perpetuate a cycle of unhealthy praise and worship over these giants in the industry that have been known to be horrible people who use their power and manipulate people in order to do, like Dennis said, violent sexual crimes or other things. And I just think that, they're just doing such a good job, because it's like, yeah, let's start off with talking about hypocrisy for a second. And it's just so good.
I will not be playing Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon 7. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I will be magnanimously taking a step back.
Yeah, I feel like you're talking really slow and taking a bunch of pauses. I don't know what's going on.
I'm waiting for you guys to praise me.
What?
Well, because I'm doing something anti-racist, and I think I deserve praise for that, do I not?
You don't get praise for telling people you're not racist.
Then why am I doing it?
Why don't we just move on from this, guys? Let's move past.
Okay. The comedic timing. love the show so much, but it's like exactly because so much of it, like they were setting up with the whole Cosby, Polanski, Woody Allen callbacks, is like so much of this is in name only. Like the hypocrisy is glaring, and now people do things to and align themselves with things and do things to purposefully seem anti-racist, but they're only doing it not because they are actually anti-racist, but for people to be like, wow, you're amazing. You're amazing. You see how deep this commentary goes? Like they're really hitting the nail on the head on this one, and it's just fucking hilarious. It's priceless.
Well, hopefully Murtaugh's good. Yeah. Oh, who did you end up getting? Well, so Frank went under the bridge to get a prostitute for a sex scene. He talked the pimp into Black Murtaugh. So, some guy named Pepperjack or something like that.
Happy birthday, little baby hoe. Wish your whole mama, Riggs' wife, and my daughter could be here to see this. But she died. Run along and play, little bitch.
Hey, Fab.
Whoa. What's this now? I hope you're not hating on Pepperjack's flow.
No. No. You guys are.
Oh God.
No, I think your flow is great. I think what you're doing is great. The thing is, maybe this next take you could do it a little bit more.
A little more Pepperjack.
Yeah, a little bit more Pepperjack.
Okay.
Okay
then.
Okay.
Now we're cooking.
Okay, we're cooking.
All right.
Thank you, Pepperjack.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. I feel like what they're trying to show there is if your intentions are purely self-serving. So all of their intention is to make a non-offensive version of the Lethal Weapon series because they're scared to be canceled. Again, because all their, other sequels were pulled from the library. So the goal is to make themselves look good and feel good. That's the goal of this whole thing. It's not to actually make a realistic portrayal of Lethal Weapon. It's not to actually kind of address the racial shit. It's like, okay, what we're going to do is listen to the fears of people and our fears of being canceled. Will create something that has no heart, has no soul, but is purely being dictated to by the fears of what's going on, of white people around them being scared to be canceled. So they're being scared to be canceled. So what do? For Murtaugh, instead of Mac playing Blackface as he did previously, they hire Pepperjack, who's a callback from the episode where Dennis and Dee are serial killers. So he's funny, but it's a callback. And so basically they choose Pepperjack out of convenience, not really that he's good for the role, not really that he's gonna be good at depicting Murtaugh or anything like that, purely because Frank went under the bridge to get the prostitute. And the pimp just so happened to be Pepperjack. And so he was also black. That was enough. And so we are going to have you in this movie and it's going to work because we don't want to be called out for blackface again. When in reality, it's like, okay, but you didn't look past his race. So in a way, you're generalizing him as well and being racist towards him as well, because you're like, oh, you're black, so you can play this role, not thinking about his personality. If he's even good for this role, he didn't have to audition for this role. He just was like, oh, you're the pimp to the prostitute that I need to film with, so you can come too because you're black, and we don't know any other black people. They're hitting it. I'm telling you.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm here
Artemis,
bringing a woman of
a
color
queen.
to spice things up.
Where is she? Where is she?
It's a woman of color is right here.
You're a woman of color?
Yeah, I'm Persian. That's the ethnicity from Iran. Hello.
Got it around. Artemis, did you give Pepperjack the note?
Yes. Yeah, I simply asked him if he's ever been to a child's birthday party. He said yes. I said, take us to that place and make it authentic to your experience.
What? What do you mean this is not my kid? Are you motherfuckers kidding me? I've been paying child support for 5 years, and Pepperjack's pullout game is strong. So if I don't get some answers real fast, Pepperjack about to cut all of y'all.
Someone versatile, someone with the skill, range, and talent of one of the best actors of our generation. We need Don Cheadle.
You know Don Cheadle?
No. but I know the guy that plays him.
Oh, God.
Hey, partner.
Okay, so this is a hilarious running joke where this guy, I forgot who he played in The Cosby Show, but his name is Jeffrey something. And I don't know if you guys remember, but a couple years ago, someone took a picture of him and posted it on social media like, this is Jeffrey so-and-so from The Cosby Show, and he's working at Trader Joe's, da-da-da-da. And he kind of responded, and he was like, ever since the whole Cosby stuff, the trial and stuff, they took the show off of syndication, and so my paycheck has gone really down, and so I had to do what I had to do and do a Trader Joe's thing. And so from that, a lot of people poured out sympathy, and they, reprimanded the person who took the picture, like, why are you trying to shame someone for, like, just trying to do an honest day's work? And so I think he got some work with Tyler Perry. Other directors were like, we're going to hire you, da-da-da. But Mac responded to this, and he's like, I've been hiring this guy since the early 2000s, since this show started, which is why this is a running joke that he's the guy that plays Don Cheadle, because he played Don Cheadle, he played Tiger Woods, he played a football player from the Eagles. He does this thing where he's just this black guy, and he's like, oh, I'm actually these black people in the show throughout the seasons. And Mac was like, I've been hiring him for such a long time. He's such a good actor. And that's why he got the job on this season, because of all the hubbub around the Trader Joe's thing. So again, I think that's really cool that he has always supported black actors in terms of this show. I mean, old black actors, he supported this guy, Jeffrey from The Cosby Show. So it's a running joke, but also there's some truth to it, because Mac has always, or Rob McElhenney has always hired this guy even when he was older and not on The Cosby Show. So it's like a combination of things, but it's good that he's hired, because it's, again, one of those things that touches both the internal reality of the show as well as the external reality of us watching the show. So another good job.
Always with me. Right here. In your heart.
Well, he's really good. He's good. He's really good.
He's a real actor.
Okay, here comes our new villain, guys. Fingers crossed it works.
I hold that thought, son. My shit be blowing up. Talk to me.
Excuse me, what are you doing in this park in my neighborhood?
Who is this bitch?
It's Karen.
I just don't understand how this is built.
Well, one of the last socially acceptable groups to villainize are entitled white women.
It's just like making me uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
It's not fun, is it?
It's no fun.
Okay, what I love the commentary. It's just so good, because the commentary that they're having back here is like so telling. Like the whole Karen bit, and I feel like obviously that's a callback to the Central Park bitch who was fucking psychotic. And then that whole situation and a bunch of situations like that came out during 2020, just the whole Karen thing in general. I love that they pulled from that. I love that they are also talking about, like, can you even do a villain now? Because people take it as the whole group is being defined by this person's villainous behavior. So because of PC culture and woke culture, like, what is an acceptable villain? And now they're talking about, like, okay, maybe it's not a human at all, because clearly, the Karen was off-putting, even though it's okay to villainize white women now, and should still be, because, a lot of Karens suck. And then they're like, but if we have a minority in that role, that then becomes definitive of their whole entire race's character. And people might comment on that, like, why did you have a black person in the evil role and stuff? So the PC culture is so convoluted and so crazy that they don't even know if they can even put anyone up as a villain at this point, because of the potential backlash that they can get. So these few words that they say, it's like, it's so quick. It's like, this is a 25-minute episode. These commentary things that are happening behind the scenes it happens so fast, but it's like they are pulling from so much. When you break it apart, it's like they're pulling from 2020. They're pulling from they're calling things back from old freaking seasons, like the first season. They're talking about race. They're talking about blackface. They're talking about appropriateness. They're talking about PC culture, all in this one 25-minute episode. And it's like, they're doing such a good job. They are. Like, they're putting commentary. They're saying they're pulling out hypocrisies. They're pulling out things so people can look at themselves in the entertainment industry and be like, oh, that was kind of dumb, the way we all went about doing this, and it is kind of dumb how we're all trying to distance ourselves from our offensive content from the past, instead of just being like, I'm sitting in it, I'm talking about it, and I'm confronting it and dealing with it and making content out of that, which is what people need more of. You know, like too often in American history, we're like, oh, we didn't do that. It wasn't that bad. Slavery was just not that bad. Oh, that happened 400 years ago. Oh, we did da. When in reality, it's like, had we taken all of that information, taught everybody the same history, and made a point to, instead of hiding certain things and lying about certain things, I think as a country we'd be in a much more smart place, a much more intellectual place, but a much easier place to get along if everyone had the same amount of knowledge about the horrors of slavery, the horrors of, internment camps for Asian people, Japanese people, the horrors of how we treated Chinese people, who built our railroads, the horrors of just everything, and sat in it and confronted it and been like, you know what? It was terrible then. It's terrible now. Da 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 da. It was dumb of us for us. It's dumb. It was dumb for us to do. It was not okay. And this is how we're fixing it. And this is what we're trying to do actively every day to atone for that. But instead, we like to cover it up. The entertainment industry likes to cover shit up. And it's not until it gets so big and massive that it breaks everything down with it that people finally pay attention. So, wonderful commentary. I'm loving it.
Like a plague, an act of God. All the best villains in the Bible were acts of God.
A tsunami. You know what? Let's call it a tidal wave. That feels less racially charged.
You see how petty things have gotten? It's like, oh, and that is how petty things have gotten. Like, I promise you. Like, that's how petty certain things have gotten, because it's like, okay, like, what's a good example of this? Demi Lovato. She's a mess, and I have strong opinions about her in her situation, but I remember it was this year or last year that she got this Discovery Plus alien extraterrestrial show, and she came out and she was like, well, speaking out about aliens and calling them aliens is really offensive to aliens. We need to call them like extraterrestrial beings or something like that. She made up some sort of phrase to call them. And it was just like, huh? Like, it's like, sometimes I understand the critique that the right has for that, because it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, bitch? Like, what are you fucking saying? Like, that doesn't make sense. Aliens are aliens are aliens. Now, where I don't agree is when people say illegal aliens, referring to undocumented people, because that's dehumanizing, and there's a reason why that has been phased out of our vocabulary. But it's like, not you talking about freaking aliens and being like, they are offended by the term alien. And that's kind of this conversation of, let's not call it tsunami, let's call it tidal wave. And it's like, is it that big of a deal? It's a tsunami is a tsunami is a tsunami. An alien is an alien and is an alien. Some things are just what they are. It doesn't have to be like this other social commentary about, being, addressing people in this way. It's like, it's an alien. It's fine if we call aliens aliens. We don't even know what they want to be called. We don't even know. You haven't met one. You haven't seen one. And you're over here like, it's offensive. It's like, there are bigger things to worry about, bitch. But she's a whole issue for another day, child.
Oh, it says look behind you.
Tidal wave. Where'd that come from?
Well, no country specifically. Just an act of God, I guess.
No God specifically, just the universe or whatever.
Whatever. People.
This is a piece of shit.
They're right.
You can still do this. Okay, what about this? What if Riggs and Murtaugh start to shoot out a path so that the tidal wave moves to a field that's been decimated by climate change?
That doesn't even make any sense.
Watch that movie. The generation on the left seemed to be a tough tough nut to crack, so I turned my attention to the youth of the right.
Socialists are ripping away our freedom.
Totally.
It's a slippery slope until we are living in a failed welfare state.
Right. Hey, what do you say we get out of here and get into our own slippery state? You know what I mean, Lisa? Talking about us banging, you conservative little minx.
Pig.
Little mink.
This time, I engaged. Either way, I took a new tack.
We need to use our privilege as much as we possibly can to protect people. How can you not see that?
We need to use our privilege to protect people as much as we can. How can I not see that?
Because if we don't, who will?
Because if we don't, who will?
Exactly. What we need is a revolution.
Exactly. What we need is a revolution. Simply regurgitating back to them exactly what they're saying to each other in their ridiculous echo chambers is all they want. And then we can get what we want.
Sorry. That shot of Dennis having sex always freaks me the fuck out. It's hilarious, but it's so creepy. And he's creepy, obviously. But that whole part that he was talking about, chef's kiss. I say that whole part, Democratic Party to the fucking T. Like, and honestly, the Republican Party too. But he's commenting on the fact that we are all in echo chambers, whether we want to believe it or not. We're shifted into different echo chambers through social media. There's that whole issue with Facebook and how their algorithm has caused like genocides and wars and also radicalized people, and because of the misinformation that just flows from it so freely. And they're getting, you know, the whole whistleblower situation. But we're funneled into echo chambers. And if you listen to only people that agree with you, you're not really making a strong opinion. Do you get what I mean? You're not really building out a strong, debatable case. You're not learning skills to be able to speak on your point in a way that people, to someone that may or may not agree with you or understand. And that's something that I have had to check myself on recently, because it's like with this whole vaccine nonsense and da-da-da-da, like, you know, what I realize is everybody I know is vaccinated pretty much. And like I said, I think that says a lot about the you know, varying flavors of liberalism that surround my life, because not everyone is as left as me that I know. But it's like, if we are only ever engaging in politics in this way through social media, through CNN, through Fox, through the lens of mainstream media or whatever, and not really trying to bolster our opinions with facts, with statistics, with quotes, with real life experience, do you really believe it, or are you just being told what to do at a point? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not actually actively trying to refine and think of the points that are important to you, and you're not really actually trying to build out your moral compass and what's okay with you and what's not okay with you, and why you believe these things and where that belief comes from, and it all kind of is like, well, my parents believe this, so I believe this, or I da-da-da-da, or all my friends believe this. Like, a lot of it has turned into, all my friends agree with this, so that's kind of how I believe in politics and stuff. Or I only get my politics from social media ever, and the people that I follow look at this way, and the people that other people follow look at it that way. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like he's pointing out the fact that, like, in order to be able to manipulate us, it's so easy for both sides to be grifted, because, you know, what do we have to do? We just have to just repeat what they want to hear, like he did with that girl. What did you say? Oh, what did you say? Repeat it back. And now she thinks she's having a deep conversation when we're just really just like scratching each other's backs and not really having a deep debatable conversation. It's just a bunch of, yeah, I agree. And yeah, I agree. Do you know what that means? And I feel like that in your mind makes you believe that your opinion or your stance or your debatable topic is stronger than it really is, because you don't have to like continuously reinforce it with facts, because everyone you know is like, yeah, I agree with that, you know? And why I said it reminds me of the Democratic Party is, especially in its state now, is they grifted us young people, child. They grifted us. The thing is, I believe in voting. Too many black people have died for the right to vote for me to not vote. So I believe in voting, period. But it's like, what ended up happening with this Joe Biden presidency, it's like he wasn't even my second choice. He was definitely like my fourth choice in terms of people who were running, period. Most young people, at least the young people that I know, want a progressive, more progressive, actively more progressive, left-leaning president that is addressing the issues that need to be fixed for us. Minimum wage is something that needs to be fixed. We need our student debt canceled. We need health care for all. All of these things that are huge issues for our generation and lower, because boomers and other generations have made it basically inaccessible at this point for us to even begin to grow a generational wealth within our own lives. They use that and they repeated it back to us. Oh, you want health care? We'll work on that. Minimum wage $15, we'll work on that. Oh, you want student debt to be canceled? We will work on that, especially because he had to try and bolster everybody when most young people, again, were voting for Bernie and or Elizabeth Warren, you know, or people who are more progressive because they actually practice what the fuck they preach. Biden has always been moderate, will always be moderate, and that's why the policies that he promised aren't coming true. He said when he got into office, automatic $10K student loan debt was supposed to be erased. Hasn't happened. Now he's tiptoeing around the topic like, well, I'll push it back to May 1st, or I don't know if I even have the authority to do such things. And it's like, pay it. Because now if you really think we're going to fucking pay after not having to pay for 2 years, baby, those student loans, Jesus is going to pay them because we're not paying them. Guess what? You've shown us a world where we didn't have to pay it and the whole society didn't collapse. So whatever the fuck you want to say, someone is paying this and it's not going to be us. But the whole mirroring thing where they just were like, yeah, and we'll raise the minimum wage, that was dead in the water immediately. We'll do this, even the Build Back Better infrastructure plan, all of them are like little whispers of what they were supposed to be because of how moderate Democrats fucking work. They got us to get them in their positions of power, and they're still continuing to hold up systems of oppression that they said they would dismantle, and that's the issue. So I think, again, another great fucking comedic moment that points to something really real that people are dealing with, that our generation is having to deal with politically. It's just fantastic, and it's just a wonderful commentary on, do you check yourself, right? Like, do you have conversations with people who don't agree with you? Do you read news sources that aren't news sources that agree with you to try and see where they're coming from? Do you read outside of that scholars, studies, statistics, facts that continuously push you back into the direction of, yeah, these are all the evidentiary reasons why I believe this? Or are you just following some political person on Twitter or something? There's a difference.
Hi, Mr. Cheadle, Donovan McNabb, Tiger Woods, Elvin, whatever your name is. Listen, we have come to the conclusion that you, and only you, have the knowledge, the experience, and the authenticity to tell this story. So we are going to do the right thing. We're going to do the woke thing, and hand complete creative control over to you.
But were they? Lethal Weapon 7 was destined to be an inferno of quasi-wokeness and good old-fashioned racism. Out of the smoldering ashes, however, I pieced together a cautionary tale. An exploration, not of what is gained by learning, but of what is lost by staying ignorant.
One thing left to do.
Like Lethal Weapon 8?
Yep.
Yeah. Never saw guys.
I'll play Murtaugh.
No.
Okay. Guys, like, the material, that show is The fact that it ended with the white savior thing, I mean, it's so well done. I guess in conclusion, what I want to talk about, what I want to bring up is this constant thing in America of just not wanting to discuss things and shooing things away. The conversations that we're taught that are to be impolite, that you never bring up to people, are conversations that we need to have the fucking most with each other. Talking about race, talking about politics, talking about just how we feel on social issues. Those things are so integral in having creating some sort of layer and basis of understanding from people with different perspectives. And the more you're able to have discussions like that in a healthy, understanding way, the less likely they are to get heated and angry and messy and pointless, which is where we're at now. We've not talked to each other so long that we can't talk to each other anymore, and without it getting heated and angry and nasty. This culture of ignoring things, this culture of whatever, which I appreciate, which is why I watched this episode, because they are always so tongue-in-cheek, but they chose something that a lot of other shows did not choose to do. They chose to straight up be like, you know what? We're talking about it. We're talking about the hypocrisy of the industry that, protects people like Bill Cosby for 50 freaking years and Harvey Weinstein for however many years for taking our episodes off of streaming. We're apologizing in the same breath that, people were offended and, it wasn't the right thing to do the blackface and to do the offensive characters. But we're pointing out the hypocrisy to say, at the end of the day, the way we were trying, the point of this show is to show how awful people are, and that's how awful people are. And so kind of like, and then they're pulling from old episodes. They had Jeffrey on there, which was so funny and great. And then they have the commentary about echo chambers and how we're being radicalized and socialized now online. It just spoke to so much. To me, here's a good example. There is a movie called Song of the South that Disney made, I believe, in the 1940s, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, let me double check that. It was made in the 1940s. There is a Disney movie called Songs of the South, and it was made in the 1940s by Disney. And it is one of the most offensive pieces of media people have deemed it to be. It basically, the reason why it was thought to be offensive is it basically made it seem like the slaves in the South loved being slaves. It was their favorite thing to do to be a slave, and really reified stereotypes like Uncle Ben, or the magical Negro stereotype, or the mammy stereotype within the whole premise of the movie. Yes, it was made in the 40s, but it was still not received well. So what Disney did was they completely scrubbed all copies that they had of it, stopped production on it, and never really spoke of it again. Now, if you've ever gone to the Disneyland, the original Disneyland in Southern California in Anaheim, there is a ride called Splash Mountain. That ride is based on the characters from the movie Song of the South. The song Zippity Doo-Dah is based on the movie Songs of the South. All of those things, and as a kid, I was like, "What movie is this from? I don't know any of Brer Rabbit. I don't know any of these characters. Who is that?" And it was from this movie that was highly disgraced and completely wiped from existence. My dad says he has an original copy somewhere. That would be freaking dope if he did. But it's a very, very offensive movie that basically has not seen the light of day for many, many years because of how poorly received it was. And there was this resurgence of talking about Songs of the South and impact of Songs of the South, and if they were going to put Songs of the South on Disney Plus, because the whole allure of Disney Plus is we're putting our entire catalog on there. And when Disney Plus dropped, they didn't put Songs of the South on there. they just decided to not completely not do it. And to me, I thought that was a missed opportunity. Here's why. Similar to how the people of It's Always Sunny decided not to just distance themselves from their past of doing blackface and offensive stuff, they decided to sit in it, create a whole social commentary around how they feel about it, and make that content. I feel like it's a more healing experience than just being like, oh, that was a long time ago, and never bringing it up again like a lot of other shows did. What Disney Plus and Disney could have done was put the movie there on Disney Plus and make it a whole thing, make it a whole re-release. Put the movie there, have a disclaimer at the beginning of the movie, and also have a whole documentary attached to the re-release of the movie discussing the racial portrayals of Disney movies, and having them now be apologetic, take accountability for the depictions that they put out into the world, but also allowing people to explain why these were offensive, why it hurt them, and show that they're turning a new leaf. Because to me, until they acknowledge Songs of the South existing, it's hard for me, even though I love the new movies that they're coming out with, Encanto, Soul, all of those freaking movies have been so great, and they talk about so many things that kids need to know about. And there's so much more diverse from, I'm a 90s baby, so we only had like Jasmine when I was growing up. But like, it's the ability to sit and truly hold oneself accountable. And that way, people can watch the movie, watch the documentary, and understand, okay, wow, we're going through Disney's old catalogs. We're understanding, the history of Walt Disney and how he was a racist person, and anti-Semitic, which he was, and a eugenicist, which he was, and discussing that dark history that's concurrent with Disney as a conglomerate and the corporation of Disney, and addressing that finally once and for all, so people can stop asking, and you can point people to the content that you made about it, about being accountable, being sorry, but also explaining historical things from Black voices and people of color, and giving them the opportunity to be like, I saw Songs of the South, this is where it was wrong. Black intellectuals, I feel like Cornel West would be amazing in something like that, but I feel like it was a missed opportunity because they did just no longer wanted to be associated with the fact that they were racist and that was racist or whatever. So it's been completely scrubbed to the point where I didn't even know that movie existed until I did personal research on racist Disney stuff for some blog posts that I've made in the past. But it's like, they never do that, and they never take that route, which is why I'm commending It's Always Sunny, because they decided to take that route. They literally never take that route. They never do, because they would rather just be like, oh, that was in the past and I'm not addressing it anymore, and move on with their lives, instead of actually being accountable, holding the L, being accountable, and showing everybody that you've actually truly learned from the experience. Do you know what I mean? I guess the other thing I want to just say really quick is, it's hard for me to be sympathetic to all of these comedians like Kevin Hart and Dave Chappelle, who complain about cancel culture in all of their specials now, when a show like It's Always Sunny can still exist, and the irreverent humor that is still able to be pushed out with the social commentary. It's like, it's really hard. It's not that people stopped loving irreverent humor, but you just being rude to trans people, and then being like, I have a white trans friend who passed away, and da-da-da-da, as a shield to potential backlash. Like, that's not the same. Like, what they're doing in this show is full-on satire. They're constructing jokes within a story to provide social commentary on life. And they talked about cancel culture in a way that wasn't just like, cancel culture is stupid, Twitter isn't real. And it's like, okay, you can complain about this, but just say you're not funny enough, babes. Just say, if in the same cinematic universe as this show existing, your special comes out and it was offensive, I think you need to look into your life and look internally and think about how you're constructing these jokes. Because there's funny, irreverent jokes still. this show still exists, and that's what it's full of, and people still love it because of the way in which they do it. Again, with the blackface conversation, it's the way in which you approach the joke. And sometimes, in terms of Chappelle and the situations he went through over the past few months, it's like the jokes weren't funny, they didn't land well, and they were offensive. And if this show's able to exist, hun, maybe you need help writing jokes now in this new climate. Maybe you need to do a little soul searching in order to find a way to get the joke across without being so hateful in the delivery. Does that make sense? Like, you can't pay me to feel bad for what he got canceled for, because if I can still love It's Always Sunny and they're constantly continuing to up the bar with irreverent humor, comedy, and just social commentary, then you can do the same, especially if you're deemed the GOAT of comedy. So miss me with that too. Like I said, this was a non-traditional vibe. I just felt compelled to talk about this episode because it was so effing good and they did such a good job, and I love this show so much. It's literally one of the only very few things that I completely stan. And yeah, so without further ado, I hope you liked my commentary on this, and I will pop in with bonus episodes or different types of content sometimes too. If I feel compelled to, if I feel moved to. So this won't be the first and the last time, but I really felt compelled by this episode. So like I said, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia season 15, episode 2, Lethal Weapon 7. And yeah, without further ado, all I gotta say is Black Lives Matter and Free Palestine until it's backwards. Love you guys.